What are the best questions to ask or things to learn about someone in the first few months of a relationship? I'm dating someone, and it's going really well. We've been dating for 3 months, and we're exclusive and official. I really like their company and am pretty confident I could fall in love with them given enough time, and they seem equally committed. Before I fall head over heels, I'd like to make sure that we are genuinely compatible and that I know and understand them well. What questions would you ask to get to know someone you're in an early relationship with? What experiences would you recommend having together in the first few months of a relationship?
I'm not going to lie. This is a fantastic question. Here's my take. I don't necessarily ask specific questions, but try to engage topics through conversation. We all know the holy trinity of taboo topics: politics, religion, and money. But for me, these points shed light into who they are and how they would fit into my life. Typically, I'll share some detail of each topic and how it relates to myself and discuss their responses. With politics, I listen to how they comment on current events and policy change and look for commonalities or conflicts. I'm not religious at all, and while others with religion don't bother me, I listen to their own desires for faith practice and converse about how my beliefs might impact them, if they can cope with me understanding but never believing. Money is my biggest concern of the three. Have I seen evidence that indicates that this person is responsible with money? I might share with them a bit about how I plan for the future financially, and typically they will share their plan in response. Of course, sex is also a big one. While talking about it first helps, that one you've just got to feel out. I guess what I'm getting at is that if you share what is important to you first, you can often find the answers you're looking for through the discussion that follows. The direct question and answer approach works too, but people may get defensive and feel interrogated.
My husband was the first guy who I ever went on a trip with who I still liked when we got back. You get to see how they interact with different people, how they deal with problems, how they act when they're tired, and what happens if you disagree on what to see or do. There can be a whole lot of stuff going on other than fun and romance.
I was told by someone that they would not marry someone unless they go on a long trip to a third world country together. The point I got was you need to share time and space under unpredictable, uncomfortable, unfamiliar circumstances. I believe someone's true character comes out with that. My suggestion is that when you two do activities under differing situations, observe how that person handles it. I would look at their behavior, attitude, demeanor, and resourcefulness if they are solution and action-oriented. I would observe how they treat other people, especially if they are of a different class, race, ethnicity, status, and gender. I believe it is how someone behaves is more telling than any answers to my questions.
I went on a trip to Hawaii once with a guy who didn't like sightseeing, had to watch CNN every morning, and made sure that we stopped whatever we were doing to get back to the hotel for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He didn't want to go out at night, and he didn't like the beach. Then after we got home, he wanted me to reimburse him for half of the expenses and hotel that he chose. I have no idea why he thought that he wanted to go to Hawaii, but it was a miserable trip for me.
A long time ago, a girlfriend and I developed what we called a "we box." There were 2 compartments in it to hold slips of paper on which we wrote down activities for us to do together. W stands for weekdays when there were only a few hours available, and E stands for weekend activities that might span 2 days. Each of us took the same number of paper slips for W and for E and separately jotted down things we wanted to do together. All of the slips of paper were then thrown into the appropriate compartment and mixed up. Whenever we couldn't decide on what to do, we'd draw one slip from the box, and that's the activity we did. This was a great way to experience different things and to learn about each other. The various activities spurred many interesting conversations and allowed each to see the other trying new experiences and sometimes be uncomfortable. It was fun and educational. It also had a positive effect on non-physical intimacy.
Some people may laugh at this, but I have learned that when I watch dating shows with my girlfriend, it naturally brings up different scenarios for us to discuss and react to. Both my girlfriend and I are Black American, and we watched a show called Ready to Love. It involves Black Americans in their 30s dating each other, and the topics that come up are very common breaking points: finances, children, traditional roles in the relationship, career priorities, and so we will usually discuss how we feel about these topics as we watch the show. It has definitely been a good way to discuss without it being an interrogation. Outside of that really niche example, there are cards that contain important discussion questions. My sister gave them to my ex and I, and it was a great way for us to have these discussions in a way that didn't feel like one of us was trying to interrogate. My ex and I would take turns picking a card and then answering the question. I just wish one of the cards had the question, "Do you consider yourself ready for marriage?" because that might have saved some of us from the random breakup that happened when she moved in.
I've dated someone with childhood trauma, and he was the one who was so afraid of being needy and getting too attached as he feared that I'd reject him. Eventually, he started distancing himself, and now he has very conflicted feelings about this whole story. There are so many things you may learn about a person's character when you get to know their families and what their childhood looked like. It'll tell you a lot about their attachment style, communication style, ability or inability to open up and be vulnerable when it's important, what their self-image is, if they are open to the world or totally self-reliant.
I can't believe no one brought this up yet. Ask them their feelings on open relationships. Polygamy. If you are mono and they are not really committed to mono, you will have problems down the line. My ex-wife polygamy bombed me, and although I tried everything I could to live with a poly lifestyle in order to stay with my kids, the experience left me very suicidal. I came very, very close to ending it all. The only thing that kept me alive was what was going to happen with my kids and my relationship with them, and I couldn't do that to them. Anyhow, I survived, and 8 years of therapy undid the damage that marriage did to me. And my fiancée that I am with now also had a terrible experience with polygamy, and she hates it as much as I do, so I have no fear of being poly-bombed again. But this is something that should be discussed before you get to the moving in together stage. For some reason I do not understand, poly is becoming more and more popular now, so it is definitely something to watch out for if you are not.
I covered all of the main ones with my current girlfriend on the first couple dates. We touched on politics, religion, music, and more. On the second date, we discussed love languages and why our previous relationships didn't work out. Other things I thought about extensively in past relationships are expected frequency of sex, finances, parenting style, things like that. It's also good to know how they handle disagreements. My ex would turn every minor disagreement into a fight, and she would never take responsibility for anything.
Go grocery shopping together. It's a high-stress environment with a lot of decision-making. Also, do a home improvement project together. Doesn't have to be major, but will show how you can work together, how you approach projects and setbacks, etc. I ignored the red flags with my ex and found out firsthand when he moved in that we did not work well together.
The biggest thing for me early on is making sure I'm not being optimistic and interpreting their answers and behavior in a way that makes them fit with who I want them to be. It's good to see the good in people, but having to be selective about what you see or making excuses, giving them the benefit of the doubt and pretending what they really meant by that is what trips me up. Add that to not wanting to seem judgmental or negative and being self-conscious about how I'm coming across, and I've ended things after months because of something I saw on one of the first few dates and dismissed.
The New York Times did an article on the 36 questions to fall in love. My girlfriend suggested we try it, and it's been kind of wonderful. You'd think you could blow through them over dinner or in a night, but we've been at it for a few months now off and on. Every time we start again, one question's answer leads to other stories or further off-list questions, and we end up talking till bedtime. Give it a try. We've learned so much about each other that way.
Just like many things in life, some stuff just happens and plays out well naturally. Some things don't, and then you can intervene and check the fundamentals. For example, someone could have a serious criminal record or really bad financials and skillfully avoid those subjects completely. Other times, people will out themselves as poor with money or talk about important stuff in a level-headed way naturally. I don't know if you're a parent, but this is like the talk you have with kids about sex. My son is extremely averse to the topic, but susceptible to the opinion of his peers and people on TikTok. And this means I have to be the embarrassing one and raise this issue completely intentionally and unnaturally.